Your new hires are not dedicated to you, and here's how you can retain good people on your teams. Hello and welcome to the Golden Hour. This is the 5 a.m. Leadership Lab. And it is the Golden Hour because the Golden Hour is the very first hour in which you start your day. The more you start your day more powerfully, the more it sets the tone for how the rest of your day will go. So in these Leadership Labs, I answer questions that real executives ask. And the question sounds like this. I have team members. Some of them are underperforming. Some of them are excellent. How do I retain good members, especially if I'm noticing that some of these good performing A players are looking elsewhere? How do I do? How do I get them to be more dedicated to me? So this is the question that I'm answering today. My first answer to that is, well, your team members aren't dedicated to you. None of your new hires are dedicated to you. Now, this might come as a shock to you because you might feel like, well, I'm dedicated to their development and I'm dedicated to my company, but I submit to you, you're also not dedicated to that. This might sound like a bold statement, but let me unpack that for you. Individuals are not dedicated to companies and organizations. Individuals don't get dedicated to projects. They're not dedicated to industries. They're not dedicated to teams or departments. People don't get dedicated to these things. But there's one thing that every individual is dedicated to. Individuals and your new hires are dedicated to fulfilling what's most important to them. They are dedicated to their own priorities. Now, if they can see how staying on your team and participating in your team activities, if they can see how that is going to in turn help them fulfill that, and in turn they see how it's going to help them to fulfill on their top priorities and the things that are important to them, then yeah, they're going to appear to be dedicated to you. They're going to appear to be dedicated to your teams. If they can see that, the same thing is true in an organization. That's why I mentioned you're not dedicated to your organization either, right? Has it ever happened that you were a part of a previous organization and then you left? Maybe you started out in that organization really inspired to be a part of it, but eventually that expired and you left. Why? Because at the essence of it, you no longer could see how being in that organization was fulfilling on the things that were most important to you. And as soon as you don't see that anymore, you desire to leave. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to be dedicated to an organization. You are dedicated to the things that are most important to you, your priority. But here's the thing as well. Priorities change. You didn't have the same priorities as when you were 20 years old. You didn't have the same priorities maybe 5 years compared to the you 5 years ago. So in your new hires, your newer hires have certain priorities for themselves and they know it. If they couldn't articulate it to you, they know it intuitively. So that's why I don't recommend asking people, what is your top priority? What are the things that are most important to you? Because in professional settings, they may not feel safe sharing that with you. And even if it wasn't a professional setting, they may not be consciously aware of it, but intuitively and behaviorally, they know it. So your new hires, their dedication is towards their priorities, and their priorities change as well. So if you've had team members that have been with you for 6 years, 7 years, maybe coming close to 10 years, or maybe even not even that long, 3 years, it's possible that their priorities have changed compared to when they first got started. So what can you do as leaders? That's why leadership is very much about relationships. You're in a company, that's all relationships too. If you think about the word company, company is a compound word. The first word in company is com, and the second word in company is pane. So what does com mean? Com means with, and pane means bread. So what you're doing in a company is you're breaking bread with each other. And it is a business, a company is made up of people. So this is where it's important. If you want to retain good people, you want to retain A players, get to know what their priorities are. Not by asking them directly because they may not know or they may not feel safe telling you, but get to know, figure that out. What are their priorities? And understand, and then be able to articulate specifically how being on your team, being on this project, participating in XYZ, how those things are going to in turn help them fulfill those priorities, their priorities. But you got to know that for yourself as well. So that's how you retain good people. It really starts with the individual. And it starts from your commitment to serve the people that are on your team. It starts with your commitment to do that. In order for you to be committed to do that, it means you're putting those relationships ahead of your own self-interest. And understand that as soon as you help your A players and you retain them on the team because you're be able to help them see how that's going to help them fulfill on their highest values. And you're also helping them to fulfill their top priorities as well. Guess what? In turn, you get to fulfill yours. So retaining good people is nothing more than creating a sustainable fair exchange. A fair exchange for them and a fair exchange for you. And fair exchanges is the only way relationships are sustainable long-term into the future.